You may have noticed it quietly at first. One evening, your feet feel colder than usual. Not painfully cold, just distant, almost like they don't fully belong to you anymore. Or maybe when you stand up after sitting, there's a faint tingling, a buzzing sensation that wasn't there years ago. It passes, but it leaves you wondering. You might even ask yourself, is this just what getting older feels like now? I've sat across from many people your age who describe that exact moment. Not fear, not panic, just a quiet concern that something in their body is slowly changing without asking permission. And what often troubles them most isn't the discomfort itself, it's the uncertainty, not knowing whether this is something harmless or something being overlooked. My name is Dr. Daniel Carter, and over many years of listening to older adults speak honestly about their bodies, I've noticed how often these sensations are brushed aside: cold feet, numb toes, a dull ache in the calves when walking, a heaviness that shows up after just a short distance. Many people tell themselves, I guess this is just age, and they carry on, even as their confidence begins to shrink a little. What's important for you to hear right now is this: aging brings change, yes, but discomfort is not automatically a requirement of getting older. There's a difference between time passing and the body losing support, and that difference is often misunderstood. Many older adults I've spoken with say the same thing. They didn't wake up one day in pain. It happened gradually, quietly. First, they walked a little slower. Then they avoided longer outings. Eventually, they planned their day around how far their legs would allow them to go. Not because they wanted to, but because their body began setting limits for them. Often, people describe their feet as feeling cold even in warm rooms, or they notice numbness that makes the ground feel unfamiliar beneath them. Some say it's like wearing thick socks even when they're barefoot. These sensations can feel unsettling, especially when balance and stability matter so much to your independence. What's rarely explained clearly is why these changes show up together, not as isolated problems, but as part of a larger pattern that develops over time. A pattern involving how well blood moves through the body, how freely it reaches the legs and feet, and how gently or forcefully it flows through vessels that have been under quiet strain for decades. In many cases, this strain isn't dramatic. There's no sudden event, no sharp warning. It's more like a slow narrowing of comfort, a subtle reduction in warmth, energy, and ease. Research suggests that reduced circulation plays a role in many of these experiences. When blood flow becomes less efficient, tissues may feel colder, slower to respond, and more easily fatigued. But here's where things become more nuanced. Reduced circulation doesn't appear out of nowhere. And it's not simply the clock turning another year. Often it's connected to long-standing inflammation in the body. Not the kind you feel like a fever or swelling, but a low, quiet irritation that can exist for years without being noticed. Many people are surprised by this. Inflammation sounds dramatic, but in everyday life it can feel like stiffness in the morning, or legs that tire too easily, or a sense that recovery takes longer than it used to. Over time, this internal irritation may affect the flexibility of blood vessels, making it harder for them to relax and expand naturally. When vessels lose that ease, blood doesn't travel as smoothly. It still moves, but with less warmth, less nourishment, less comfort reaching the farthest points, especially the feet and lower legs. That's why symptoms often appear there first. The body tends to protect the center before the edges. I've often heard people say, my heart is fine, so my circulation must be fine. It's an understandable thought, but circulation is more than the heart alone. It's the entire network of vessels responding moment by moment to your movement, your breathing, your hydration, and even your emotional state. There's something else that often goes unspoken. Many older adults quietly grieve the loss of trust in their own body. When your legs ache during a walk, you may hesitate the next time. When numbness appears, you might watch your step more carefully. Over time, that caution can turn into withdrawal. Fewer walks, fewer outings, less spontaneity, and that can affect your sense of independence far more than the physical symptoms themselves. What I want you to know is that many of these patterns are not fixed, not because there's a quick solution, there isn't, but because the body remains responsive, even later in life. It continues to listen, it continues to adapt. Often it simply needs the right kind of support. There are everyday elements that influence how blood flows and how vessels behave, things that seem ordinary: foods, water, gentle movement, even the way you breathe throughout the day. These are often overlooked because they don't feel medical. They don't come in dramatic packages. But over time, they can shape how the body feels from morning to night. Many people are surprised to learn that certain natural foods have long been associated with better circulation support, not as treatments, but as quiet helpers. Foods that seem simple, like deep red vegetables or aromatic roots, or fish that live in cold waters, have been observed to support the body's natural flow and vessel flexibility. There's also a small molecule in the body that often comes up in research discussions. It's called nitric oxide. That name can sound technical, but what it really represents is ease. It helps vessels relax so blood can move more freely. As people age, the body may produce less of it. Not suddenly, just gradually. And that reduction may contribute to the sensations you feel without ever announcing itself clearly. What's interesting is how many older adults say no one ever explained this connection to them in plain language. They were told what they were feeling, but not why it felt that way. And without understanding, it's easy to assume nothing can be done. Yet over time, I've seen that when people simply become more aware of circulation, of inflammation, of daily habits, something subtle begins to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but in how they relate to their body. There's less fear, more curiosity, a sense that the body isn't failing, just asking for attention in a different way. As you sit with this, you don't need to reach any conclusions. You don't need to change anything right now. Sometimes the most meaningful step is simply seeing your experience differently, not as an inevitable decline, but as a message, one that deserves patience, not judgment. Take a moment later to notice how your legs feel when you stand, how warmth comes and goes, how movement changes sensation. There's no need to analyze it, just observe. Often, awareness itself opens the door to understanding, and understanding can gently restore a sense of steadiness that many people fear they've lost. There's something I've noticed over the years that often surprises people. When they begin paying closer attention to their bodies, not with worry, but with quiet curiosity, they start to recognize patterns they hadn't seen before. The cold in the feet tends to appear at certain times of day. The heaviness in the legs shows up after particular kinds of movement. The tingling arrives when the body has been still for too long. These aren't random. They're the body speaking in a soft voice. Many older adults tell me they assumed circulation problems meant something dramatic had already gone wrong. But in many cases, it's more about how consistently the blood is supported throughout the day. Circulation isn't an on or off switch. It responds constantly to what you eat, how much you drink, how deeply you breathe, and how often your body is gently encouraged to move. One thing that often goes unnoticed is how nutrition quietly shapes blood flow over time, not through strict diets or rules, but through repeated small exposures. Certain foods have long been associated with supporting the body's natural ability to keep blood moving with warmth and ease, not as medicine, simply as nourishment that the body recognizes. For example, many people are familiar with beets, though they don't always think much about them. Over time, researchers have observed that foods with deep red or purple colors often relate to circulation support. People sometimes describe feeling a subtle warmth or lightness after including them regularly, not because something dramatic happens, but because the vessels may feel less tense, less constricted. Garlic is another food that comes up again and again in conversations with older adults, not because of any strong effect you feel immediately, but because it's been part of traditional eating patterns in cultures known for long-term heart and vessel health. Many people say they feel a gentle sense of internal warmth when it becomes a steady part of meals. Then there are fatty fish, especially those from cold waters. People often tell me they avoided them for years, thinking they were heavy. Yet research suggests these foods may help calm internal irritation over time. When inflammation settles, vessels may behave more smoothly. Blood encounters less resistance, and that can influence how your legs feel during everyday walking. Dark-colored fruits often carry a similar story. Blueberries, blackberries, cherries, foods that stain your fingers a little. They've been observed to support vessel resilience, not in a technical way you need to understand, but in a way many people describe as feeling less stiffness, especially in the morning. Turmeric is another ingredient that has quietly followed humans for centuries. Its presence in traditional diets wasn't accidental. Many older adults say that over time, foods like this seem to support comfort in the joints and a sense of internal balance. Again, not suddenly, just gradually, as part of a broader rhythm. What matters most isn't focusing on one food or another. It's the idea that the body responds to patterns. When nourishment consistently supports circulation, the body often responds with subtle improvements in warmth, ease, and endurance. At the same time, I've noticed that food alone is rarely the full picture. Many people eat reasonably well and still feel heaviness in their legs. That's because circulation also depends on movement, but not the kind that exhausts you or pushes limits. Many older adults believe movement must be strenuous to matter, but often it's the opposite. Gentle, regular motion encourages blood to flow downward and back up again. Even small shifts, brief walks, or slow changes in position can remind the vessels how to respond. People sometimes tell me they're afraid to move because of pain or imbalance. That fear is understandable. When the body feels unpredictable, caution feels wise. But long periods of stillness can quietly worsen circulation. Not dramatically, just gradually. The body becomes less practiced at moving blood efficiently. Breathing also plays a role that's rarely discussed. Many people breathe shallowly without realizing it. especially during stress or discomfort. Deeper, calmer breathing gently supports blood movement through the chest and downward. Some older adults notice that when they slow their breath, their feet warm slightly over time. It's subtle, but meaningful. Hydration is another quiet influence. Blood is mostly water. When the body runs low, circulation can feel sluggish. Many people simply don't feel thirst as clearly with age. They're not doing anything wrong. It's a normal change, but it means the body may need more mindful support. I often hear people say, I drink when I'm thirsty. Yet by the time thirst arrives, the body may already be asking for help. Supporting circulation sometimes begins with something as simple as steady hydration throughout the day. There's also the emotional side, which is rarely acknowledged. When you feel anxious about your body, tense about falling, or worried about pain, your muscles tighten. Blood vessels can tighten as well. Over time, this tension becomes a habit. The body stays guarded even when it doesn't need to. Many older adults don't realize how much emotional strain they carry quietly. Concern about independence, worry about becoming a burden. These thoughts don't shout, but the body hears them. When people begin to feel safer, more informed, more understood, the body often softens. Circulation may improve not because something was fixed, but because something was released. This is why understanding matters. Not to create responsibility or pressure, but to restore a sense of partnership with your body. You're not fighting it. You're listening to it. As you reflect on this, you might begin to notice how small choices influence how your legs feel later in the day. Not with judgment, just awareness. The body is always responding, and even after many decades, it hasn't stopped responding yet. There's still room for comfort, still room for warmth, still room for steadiness. And often it begins not with doing more, but with understanding more. Over the years, I've noticed that many older adults carry a quiet worry they rarely say out loud. It isn't just about pain or numbness. It's the fear of losing trust in their own body. When your legs feel unreliable, even slightly, the world can begin to feel smaller. You may think twice before going out. You may choose the closer parking spot even on good days. You may start calculating every movement without realizing it. What's difficult is that this change often happens so slowly you don't notice it happening. One adjustment becomes another. And before long, life feels more cautious than it used to, not because you've lost strength, but because confidence has been gently worn down. In many conversations I've had, people describe a strange disconnect. They feel mentally sharp, emotionally present, still very much themselves, yet their lower body seems to lag behind, as if it's operating on a different timeline. This can feel frustrating, even unfair. What's often overlooked is that circulation is deeply tied to confidence of movement. When blood flow is supported, muscles tend to feel more responsive. When warmth returns, sensation feels clearer. And when sensation improves, balance often feels steadier. Not perfect, but more trustworthy. Many older adults tell me they didn't realize how much their feet affected their sense of safety. Cold or numb feet can make the ground feel uncertain. Even subtle changes in sensation can influence how securely you step. That's why circulation issues don't just affect comfort, they affect how freely you move through your day. There's another layer that doesn't get talked about much. Over time, the body becomes very efficient at adapting. If circulation has been reduced for a while, the body learns to function within those limits. It doesn't complain loudly, it simply adjusts expectations. And because of that, many people assume nothing can change. But adaptation doesn't mean permanence. It simply means the body has been doing its best with what it's been given. Research suggests that even later in life, blood vessels retain a degree of flexibility, not like in youth, but enough to respond to support, enough to soften slightly, enough to allow more ease than before. This doesn't mean reversing time. It means improving how the present feels. Some people describe it as their legs feeling more awake. Others say walking feels less heavy. Others simply notice they're less focused on discomfort. These are not dramatic shifts, they're quiet ones. But quiet improvements matter greatly when it comes to independence. I've also noticed that people often underestimate the role of routine. The body responds more to consistency than intensity. When nourishment, hydration, movement, and rest happen in a gentle rhythm, the body begins to anticipate support. That anticipation itself can change how it functions. Many older adults spent decades caring for others, families, work, responsibilities, often putting their own physical signals aside. Later in life, when the body finally asks for attention, it can feel unfamiliar, almost awkward. But listening now is not indulgent. It's respectful. There's no need to chase perfection, no need to monitor every sensation. What matters is restoring a sense of dialogue with your body, noticing without fear, responding without pressure. Some people also explore gentle supports beyond food and daily habits. Certain natural supplements are often discussed in research related to circulation and inflammation, not as treatments and not as necessities, but as possible additions that may help support what the body is already trying to do. What's important is understanding that these supports work best when they align with an overall pattern of care, not as isolated fixes. It's also worth acknowledging fatigue. Many people say their legs tire faster than they used to, even without pain. That heaviness can feel discouraging. But fatigue is often the body's way of conserving energy when circulation is less efficient. When blood flow improves even slightly, energy distribution can feel more balanced. One of the most meaningful changes I've seen isn't physical at first, it's emotional. When people stop seeing their symptoms as a sign of inevitable decline, something softens inside them. They feel less rushed, less defeated, more willing to observe rather than assume. That shift alone can change how the body feels. You may begin to notice that on calmer days, your legs feel lighter. On stressful days, symptoms feel stronger. This isn't imagined. The nervous system and circulation are closely linked. When one is tense, the other often follows. That's why creating moments of calm, even brief ones, can support physical comfort. Sitting quietly, breathing slowly, allowing the body to settle instead of bracing against it. None of this requires force. In fact, force often works against comfort. The body at this stage of life responds far better to patience than pressure. If there's one thing I want you to hold gently in mind, it's this. Your body is not finished communicating with you. It hasn't given up. It hasn't closed the door. It's still responsive, still adaptive, still capable of small but meaningful change. And sometimes, those small changes are enough to restore something very important, the feeling that your body is still on your side. As the years pass, many people begin to measure their health less by numbers and more by how their days feel. How steady you are when you stand, how confident you feel walking across a room, how much energy remains at the end of the afternoon. These quiet details shape daily life far more than most tests ever could. I've often noticed that when circulation is supported, people don't necessarily describe feeling better in a dramatic way. Instead, they say things like, "I'm not thinking about my legs as much," or "I feel more at ease when I move." That ease is meaningful. It allows attention to return to living rather than managing the body. What matters deeply at this stage of life is preserving choice, the ability to decide when to go out, where to walk, how long to stay. When discomfort or uncertainty interferes with that, life can begin to feel narrower. Supporting circulation is not about chasing youth, it's about protecting freedom. Many older adults worry that once limitations appear, they only move in one direction. But what I've seen time and again is that the body doesn't operate in straight lines. There are plateaus, there are gentle rises, there are moments where things feel slightly easier again. These shifts don't erase age, they coexist with it. Often, the greatest relief comes not from eliminating symptoms, but from reducing their dominance. When cold feet warm a little faster, when walking pain appears later than before, when numbness feels less distracting, these changes restore confidence even if they're modest. It's important to speak honestly here. Not every sensation disappears. Not every day feels the same. Aging remains part of the story. But suffering does not have to be the narrator. Many people carry quiet shame about needing to slow down. But slowing down is not weakness, it's wisdom. The body in later years thrives on gentleness. When it's treated with respect rather than frustration, it often responds with cooperation. You may also find that your awareness deepens. You notice how your body feels after meals, how hydration affects your energy, how emotional calm influences physical comfort. These observations aren't burdens, they're tools. They help you live more in tune with yourself. Over time, this awareness can rebuild trust. And trust is what allows movement to feel safe again. I've sat with many individuals who once feared losing their independence, only to discover that understanding their body gave some of it back. Not through control, but through partnership. They stopped fighting what was happening and began supporting what still could happen. That's an important distinction. There is dignity in caring for your body thoughtfully, in acknowledging its limits without surrendering to them, in choosing curiosity over fear. If you take anything from this conversation, let it be this quiet reminder. What you're feeling is common, and it's understandable. You are not failing. Your body has been adapting for a long time, often without your awareness. Now it may simply be asking for a different kind of attention. There's no rush, no deadline, no expectation to fix anything immediately. Reflection itself is valuable. Sometimes simply seeing your experience through a kinder lens eases more than any intervention ever could. As you move forward, even small moments of awareness can matter, noticing warmth, noticing ease, noticing steadiness. These moments may seem ordinary, but they are signs of connection between you and your body. And that connection, once renewed, often brings something deeply reassuring. The sense that while time continues forward, you are still very much present within your life. Still capable of comfort, still capable of stability, still capable of feeling at home in your own body,